Hey guys, Roy from Apotheca Marketing. Today we're going to take a look at one of the new features in ChatGPT. The paid version is the code interpreter, which allows you to upload files, and it could be an assortment of types of files, anywhere from CSV to Excel to PDFs to text files. It uses the code interpreter to help you analyze those files, which we've been using for SEO and analyzing SEO metrics, and it's saving us a ton of time. So let's take a look at some of the ways we're doing it, and these might help you out and save you some hours. So within ChatGPT, again, like I said, this is the paid version. If you don't have the code interpreter set up, you can just go to the settings in beta, the beta features, turn on the code interpreter. And then what you do from there is go up here, choose the interpreter, and then you can just upload files. And so we have one here that is a CSV file of keywords. And this is from your typical query keywords from your website. We have our GA4 integrated with Search Console, which we definitely recommend you do if you haven't done that. And that shows the queries as well as landing pages from the search results pages. So, as you can see, there's a lot of keywords in here. These guys do get a lot of blood vial related keywords. It's actually a cremation and a memorial jewelry, necklaces website. And they get a lot of people obviously looking for blood related terms. But as you can see, in most keyword lists, you're going to find just a ton of different types of keywords. And sometimes it's difficult to understand your content groupings. It's difficult to understand exactly what's performing well and what's not. Maybe sometimes you want to pull out things like brand related terms compared to other terms that you're ranking for. How much is brand a part of your search results, and how much is that driving versus the work that you're doing from SEO? And if you've played around with this, if you export these into Excel spreadsheets, you know that can be a lot of work. You're going to have to create, sometimes VLOOKUPs. You're going to have to create different types of tables. You're going to have to, in some cases, use databases like BigQuery and start doing SQL statements. And that's a lot of work. And obviously, anytime you get involved with Excel, you're going to have to know formulas and that type of stuff. And, if you just have a quick question that you want to answer, that can be pretty time consuming to do. And this is where ChatGPT comes in. So we've just exported the keywords from this report for the last 40 days. You just do that up here where you can download the file. And then once we have that file, we've now uploaded it into ChatGPT. So we're going to go in and ask ChatGPT a simple question. Actually, not so simple. It's something that is a little bit more complex. Break down this file by content grouping. And what you'll see here is actually pretty neat. So ChatGPT is going to look at your data and actually go in and try to make some sense of it. And if you've exported files from Google Analytics or Google Ads before, you know that they put in some extra rows at the top that just have the date range and some basic information about the export. But that's not normalized data. So a lot of tools won't import that correctly, but ChatGPT actually is figuring it out. So you can see here, it's actually figuring out like, hey, what are the column headings? Should we get, ready to get rid of that information? And it starts to look for the information that you are looking for. So it starts to narrow that down, gets rid of the chaff from your reporting. And then it understands what we're looking at. So as you can see here, it knows that this is related to SEO. So it's saying organic Google search query, organic search clicks. It's asking me if we would like to proceed. Yes. And so now it's looking at what it thinks are good reports to run, good analysis to run from this data. So it's understanding the data that it's looking at the fields, and it's going to give you suggestions about what to actually query from your data and how to get the most of it, which is, so much better than just plugging in a SQL statement or a formula where you then have to figure out like, okay, is this really what I do look for? This is actually making recommendations. So for instance, in this case, it's saying, hey, could we do top performing click queries by clicks, by highest impressions, all that kind of stuff. So it's saying, let's look at those things. Well, that's all important, but I want to understand the content groupings of the search queries. And so it's understanding, it's basically saying this is what I've told it. So it's trying to understand that. Identify common keywords, group by keywords. And it's looking at the search queries and identifying the most common keywords. So sometimes you'll have to go in here and actually refine the query a few times to let it know what you're looking for. But you can see just in this example, it's not quite what I was looking for, but actually it's not bad. It's basically saying, hey, here are the 10 most common keywords, the number of occurrences. And so it's breaking down the common patterns in the data that it's seeing. It also is saying these are the groupings that it's seeing by how people are searching. So you have a necklace group, those are all queries that contain necklace, vial, heart, necklaces, ashes, and cremation, where it has those words in the actual keywords. And then obviously the blood, which is the higher amount of searches on the site. So it's understanding these and kind of breaking them apart. So it says, would you like to see the search queries grouped by these categories? So yes. All right, and so now it's actually breaking those out. And it's going to look at the data around those. So it's created those groups based on what it's seeing in the data. I didn't have to tell it to do that. If I wanted to refine those, I could tell it to do that, and it would go back in. So it's taking a minute to work, and it's pulling the data. And it's showing the top queries. Let's see what else. So we're telling it, yes, we would like to proceed with more queries. And it's asking if we want to see total clicks by group or total impressions by group, click rate, potential opportunities. And then all you have to do on this, if you wanted to just see one of those groups, you could just type the number. So if we wanted to see total clicks by group, you just put in 1, hit return, or select the one that you want. This one's interesting. Potential opportunities to identify content groups within high impressions but low clicks. So that's very neat. I think we should come back to that in a minute. But what I want to do is create a chart that shows actually, let's create a table. Let's create a table. As well as impressions and click through rate. And that's just working on that. And then you can see this creates a table with that data that's parsed from your Excel spreadsheet. So again, you can see in just a couple of minutes, I've had the opportunity to go through the data, to go look at typical groupings that are in there that I didn't have to figure any of that out. I didn't have to go in and create SQL queries or formulas. I can just ask it simple questions and it comes back with the data. Now, I will caveat and caution that I've seen a couple instances where this gets it incorrect. So it may add these up incorrectly, or it's working off your previous query. So it's not sampling the total data set. So you want to double check sometimes just to make sure that the total numbers are looking correct. And sometimes I've found that you just have to go back and say, run this query using the entire data set, and it'll rerun it and come out fine. What is interesting though, is not only is it providing this table, which then you could put into a spreadsheet or a presentation or just copy it and use that, but it's actually offering some other observations. So, it's saying the necklace group has the highest number of total clicks, indicating that it's the most engaging content group, which, thank you for that. That's a nice little summary. The blood jewelry group has the highest average click-through rate. So these are all good findings that you could share with an executive team, or that would help you understand how stuff is performing on your site better. The other group has the lowest value, so that's just the hodgepodge group. So that is pretty interesting. Now, we can also then say, chart these findings. And it actually, in some cases, provides you with several different charts that it thinks might be useful based on the data that you're looking at. And then these are created as, I believe, PNGs or JPEGs. I think they're PNGs that you can just copy then and paste into a presentation or a document if you wanted to. And you can see that this is creating a chart that it thinks that he'd want. You can tell it to refine this, so to just show one set of data or just one group of data. So, and you can tell it to refine this chart to, make it a bar chart or make it a line chart, that kind of thing. So in this one, for instance, we could have it get rid of the some of the data to make it a little less messy. So let's just show this chart for just total clicks. And again, if you were going to do this in Excel, you'd have to go in and change the selection, you'd have to change the chart, you'd have to do all of that. And bam, there in just a couple seconds, it made those changes. I don't need to worry about creating charts or whatever in Excel. So that is pretty neat. Now, another way that you can look at your data is, so we had this run through some content groupings, and it looked at relevant data related to that. But we see that there's these two different groups of ashes, cremation, and blood jewelry. Let's narrow down on that a little bit. Compare search queries. I could type. Just containing blood to cremation or ashes. And so it's going through its logic. It's saying that it's going to do search queries based on those keywords. Total impressions, click through, that kind of stuff. So it's actually showing that. Now, this is a code interpreter. So if you go in here and you can actually click on this, and this is writing this in Python. So if you're a tech nerd and you are comfortable with Python, you can actually go in and see how it's writing it for you. And you may want to be able to replicate that in a different system. And so you see what it did here is it grouped by keyword where the contains. So again, it's creating a sophisticated search query, contains search query. It's putting it into a table for me. It's giving me the relevant data. And then it's also giving me some observations about it. So for instance, this one, the ones containing blood have a significantly higher number of clicks compared to those containing cremation or ashes. That's pretty obvious, but it is helpful that it kind of summarizes that for you. And then again, we could have this, put it into a chart as well. So super helpful that we can do this. We can also look at brand terms or anything else. So we can say, what percentage of search queries contain brand terms related to the name of the site. And again, this will go through there. It'll count those. You don't have to write the formula or anything like that for it. And in this case, these guys don't have a very well-known brand. So it's actually pretty low, approximately 4,000 of searches. Now, that's not going to be the case for a lot of companies. For most of our clients, the majority of their organic search, when we first start working with them, is brand. We have clients that the brand searches are, 80, 90% of their SEO. That's why they're hiring us, so that we can build the other acquisition channels for them, or the other keywords that will acquire new customers, not just people who know them. But it's not uncommon for your brand term to be the largest, and that's something that you want to monitor. So in this kind of situation, I can very easily come in here, look at the data, and say how much of it is our brand, and the variations of the spelling and all that kind of stuff. It's actually looking for those intelligently, so you don't have to try to make sure that you're getting all of the variations of it. We have some clients that have a lot of misspellings of their brand terms, and this does a really good job of finding those misspellings, particularly if you tell it to look for misspellings, because it is smart enough to find most of those and figure that out. So all the variations and that kind of thing. Let's take a look at another type of file. So let me start a new chat. We'll do the code interpreter. And I'm going to take a look at landing pages on the site. So I'm telling it to group the landing pages by most common keywords contained in the URL. Now, this wouldn't also just be for SEO. You could actually take a look at, in analytics. So if you were in here, you could actually go into your landing page query. You could actually look at this by landing pages, go to Explore, and create a report that just showed landing pages coming from SEO. So you could look at just those landing pages and then start to associate revenue with those landing pages. Because you can't, in the Google reporting, associate revenue with organic keywords, you can start to see the keywords contained in those URLs and start to associate revenue with those. It gives you an idea of the type of keywords that are, or at least content groupings and keyword groupings that are driving revenue for the site. So in that case, you could create a report in here that has associated revenue with that landing page, and then find out what's going on in there. So by using ChatGPT, you could say sort it by highest revenue related keywords and that kind of thing. In this case, it's saying these are most common keywords in the, okay, so this makes sense because this is a Shopify site. So products is going to be part of the URL string. We get a lot of foreign traffic. So that's the English version, German version, and then keywords. So remove URLs that contain products. Let's remove keywords. Remove keywords that contain products. ENGB. And then it's telling me that it's removing those. So it's basing that on my last query. So it kind of understands what I had asked for before. Okay, and so that's coming back with, we still have CA in there, which is Canada. And then it's saying it's going to group them, remove collections, CA. And that's doing that. Okay, so let's create a table with the top 8 keywords that contains traffic and impressions, or that contains users and sessions. Oh, it's on its own. It's going through and grouping these keywords under with the top URLs too. So that's kind of interesting. That would be an interesting report to have. But in this case, I wanted to do this. And it's actually revising my suggestion. So it's saying keyword, number of URLs containing the keyword, total users associated with those URLs, and engaged sessions with those URLs. So it actually wrote that better than I did. And it's creating a table out of it. So you can see that this is then taking those landing pages and it's saying, okay, these are the related keywords that are contained in those landing pages. These are the common ones. And then it's showing me the relevant metrics. So in this case, the number of URLs containing that, which is super informative. So I can kind of see just how many groupings of those content groupings we have for those keywords. And then I can see the total users for each of those. And then the engaged sessions. Engaged sessions just means that they didn't bounce right away, that they were actually engaged with the website. Obviously, if we were looking at this and we had exported it from the Explore reporting that actually had the landing pages with the revenue, we could see the revenue as well. So we could start to see which of those areas is the most profitable. We can obviously see that necklaces is those URLs that contain necklace are have the most URLs, almost the most users. Vial has highest users, and then total engaged sessions. Let's say I show several charts that might illustrate this data. And again, this is going to then recommend some bar charts or line charts or whatever. Sometimes there'll be scatter charts that it recommends depending on the data that you're giving it. And it will actually look at your data, see what makes the most sense, and give you some charts that you can then use. All right, and so then it's explaining the charts. So you can see that in this case, it grouped them all together into one image. And I'll show you something in a second, but let's look at what it's finding. So total users per keyword, total engaged sessions by keyword, distribution of URLs across the keywords, and combined users engaged sessions. So let me just tell it to make these separate charts. All right, and you can see that I told it to make separate charts, and that's what it's doing. It's making separate charts from each of these that you can then right-click on and save and copy and put it into a presentation or send it an email. And again, I didn't have to create any of these. I just told it what to do. I can tell it to refine it. I could even tell it to order this differently if you wanted the certain keywords or certain groupings ordered differently. And here's a pie chart that shows that information, and then a stacked bar chart. And again, you can ask it to do particular kinds of charts or to change them or modify the data. So as you can see, just very quickly in a few minutes, I was able to take two different spreadsheets, have it crunch the numbers, have it understand the layout of the spreadsheets, and refine the data without having to do a lot of work in Excel. I don't have to do a lot of work in formulas or SQL queries. I don't even have to create charts. And so this is a very quick basis for answering some questions that I might have and comparing data. You can ask questions like, I only want to look at the top 10 to 20 or keywords between 10 and 20 of the top keywords, and it will limit it to that, or even specific keywords containing certain types of names or landing pages that are certain type of landing pages. Maybe you only want to look at, for instance, blog pages, and you can tell it to only look at those pages instead of product pages. And so, you can understand that landing pages and break that down very quickly into chunks. Let's see if that actually has any of the blog data in here. Let's see if it's able to do that. So I'm comparing landing pages with blog in the URL, to landing pages with product. So very quickly was able to take a look and parse out different types of content on the site. So we know what that is. We could also potentially look into collection pages, because this is a retail site. This has specifically, so let's add that, add pages that to this table. So I'm adding pages that contain collection in the URL to this table. And now it's creating a table for us. And you can see it added collections. And right there, we have a really quick breakdown of the content on the site without having to create a bunch of reports and a bunch of spreadsheets. I didn't have to go in and try to figure out GA4 and how I could create this in the Explorer or anything like that. This just allowed me to do it in seconds without having to do a lot of work. So you can see that it even, again, gives you this kind of breakdown of what it's looking at and how it's looking at. The average engagement rate for collections is higher than product, but lower than blog. People are doing more with the blog. And then the URLs with collections have a higher total number of users and engaged sessions compared to blog and product, which makes sense because the collections pages are basically the category pages in Shopify. And so those are going to get more traffic. But this lets you know where people are landing on the site, how they're engaging with the site. So people are engaging heavily with the blog, but you have a lot more URLs with product in it, and you have a lot more users on the collections pages. Again, if we have the revenue in here, we could break that out as a metric to show which ones are creating the most revenue. So I hope this is helpful for you. If you have experimented with ChatGPT and you found other uses for it or ways that you're using it for reporting for SEO, we'd love to hear about it. Leave it in the comments. And as usual, if this was helpful, we'd appreciate a like and subscribe. And we'll be back for more. We'll look at other ways that we're using ChatGPT with SEO in the future. Have a good one.